If you're over 60, this one sweet, juicy habit could quietly raise your risk of a stroke overnight, with no warning, no symptoms, and no pain. You go to bed feeling completely fine, and by morning, your speech is slurred, your balance is gone, or one side of your body doesn't move the way it should. As a brain doctor, I've witnessed too many older adults suffer strokes they never saw coming. These weren't caused by the usual suspects, not smoking, not fast food, not a lack of exercise, but by something they genuinely believed was part of a healthy lifestyle. Fruit. That's right, fruit. Every day, millions of people eat fruit thinking it's good for their hearts, their brains, and their digestion. And while many fruits do offer benefits when consumed in moderation, some, particularly when eaten at the wrong time or in the wrong amounts, can slowly cause serious harm. They can spike your blood sugar, dehydrate your brain, or dangerously interact with medications you're already taking. The real danger? No one ever tells you. No one warns you that the very things you're relying on for nourishment could quietly work against your body's ability to protect itself from stroke or brain bleed. Let's start with bananas. They seem like the perfect food, easy to digest, soft, full of nutrients, especially potassium, and even labeled as heart-friendly. But what most people don't realize is how drastically the body's needs and responses change after the age of 60. Your kidneys, heart, and blood vessels become more sensitive to sudden shifts in electrolytes like potassium. And bananas are one of the most potassium-rich fruits out there. As we age, our kidneys slow down naturally. They're not as efficient at filtering excess minerals from the bloodstream. If you already have high blood pressure, diabetes, or are on common medications like ACE inhibitors or diuretics, often called water pills, then your kidneys are under even more strain. Potassium starts to accumulate in your blood, and when that happens, the heart can begin to misfire. Your heartbeat can become irregular. Your blood vessels can constrict instead of relaxing. Worse, blood may begin to clot where it shouldn't, especially in the tiny vessels of your brain. This kind of blood clot can cut off oxygen flow to a part of the brain in mere seconds, resulting in a stroke with no prior symptoms. I remember one patient, Mr. Raymond, 66, who had been retired for just a year. He was healthy, active, and ate carefully. Every morning, he followed the same routine: banana on his oatmeal and a glass of orange juice with his medication. He'd done it for over a year. Then one morning, his wife found him collapsed in the bathroom. He couldn't speak clearly. One side of his body was paralyzed. At the hospital, the tests showed he'd suffered a small but devastating stroke. The cause? Critically high potassium levels in his bloodstream. The excess potassium interfered with his heart rhythm, likely triggering a clot while he slept. He had no idea that eating 2 bananas a day, combined with his medication and slowed kidney function, was creating a dangerous chemical imbalance. Here's what almost no one is told: your potassium needs change. You don't need high doses from supplements, and you definitely don't need multiple potassium-rich fruits a day, especially not late in the evening. A single large banana contains over 450 milligrams of potassium. That's enough to overwhelm your system if your kidneys are no longer processing efficiently. Eating that banana at night, when your body is already in rest mode, your hydration levels are lower, and your medication is circulating, sets up a perfect storm: tightened arteries, thicker blood, and a clot that could shut down part of your brain in your sleep. So what's the better choice? If you're eating bananas, limit yourself to half of one per day, preferably in the morning. Eat it with protein, like Greek yogurt or nuts, to slow absorption. Avoid banana smoothies, banana bread, and never eat bananas before bed. Talk to your doctor about how potassium-rich foods interact with any medications you're taking. It could be one of the most important conversations you ever have. Because what used to be healthy for your body might not be safe anymore, not without a full understanding of how things have changed. And if bananas seem surprising, just wait until you hear about grapes. Grapes are sweet, delicious, and so small they barely seem like they could do any harm. But inside those tiny orbs is a concentrated dose of sugar that can wreak havoc on your body, especially your brain. Unlike many fruits with fiber that slows sugar absorption, grapes are mostly water and sugar with very little fiber to buffer the glucose spike. That means when you eat a handful of grapes, your blood sugar can skyrocket in minutes. For someone over 60, whose insulin response might already be delayed or impaired. That sudden spike can lead to inflammation in the blood vessels, particularly in the brain. Over time, those spikes can damage the delicate lining of your blood vessels, making them stiff and more prone to clotting or even rupturing under pressure. Your brain depends on a constant, smooth flow of oxygenated blood. Anything that disrupts that flow, even slightly, can increase the risk of a stroke or a small brain bleed. And these are the types of events that don't always have dramatic symptoms right away. They can build slowly, silently, day after day until one morning everything changes. And because grapes are so easy to overeat, just a few at a time, popping them in your mouth without thinking, most people consume far more sugar than they realize. A small bowl of grapes can contain the sugar equivalent of multiple teaspoons. That's the kind of sugar load that causes a roller coaster in your bloodstream. Sharp spikes followed by crashes that leave you fatigued, foggy-headed, and unknowingly damaging your brain's vascular network. Even worse, grapes are often paired with other sugary snacks or juices, compounding the effect. They're marketed as healthy, as a perfect snack, but the truth is, for someone over 60, especially with a history of high blood pressure or on blood thinners, they can quietly create the exact conditions that trigger a clot or bleed. The best way to enjoy grapes, if you do eat them, is in very small amounts, 5 or 6 at most, and never alone. Pair them with something high in protein or fat, like a slice of cheese or a few almonds, to slow the sugar absorption. Never eat them right before bed, when your body is less active and blood flow slows. And be mindful of how often you're reaching for them throughout the day. The danger with grapes isn't in one or two, it's in how easy they are to eat by the handful, again and again. What seems like a harmless fruit bowl can actually be a sugar bomb that raises your risk of stroke, memory decline, or silent inflammation. These small daily habits add up. And if you've never thought about fruit in this way before, you're not alone. Most people haven't. But understanding how your body changes with age and how certain foods interact with those changes is the first step toward protecting your brain and your future. Grapes. Sweet, juicy, refreshing. A snack that feels as innocent as a breeze on a spring day. They're always on the fruit platter in your cereal bowl or served after Sunday lunch with the grandkids. But what if I told you that for someone over 60, especially those with hidden vascular issues or unstable blood sugar, grapes can be a silent trigger for stroke? It's easy to forget that grapes are concentrated sugar wrapped in a delicate skin. Each small grape may not look threatening, but eating just a handful, especially the seedless, extra sweet variety so common in U.S. grocery stores, can deliver a surge of natural glucose and fructose straight into your bloodstream. And for aging brains and blood vessels, that spike comes with a heavy cost. As we grow older, the body's natural systems slow down. The pancreas doesn't respond to sugar with the same efficiency. Insulin resistance begins to creep in, sometimes unnoticed for years. The blood vessels that once expanded and contracted smoothly now grow stiffer, less flexible. When you eat a high-sugar food like grapes on an empty stomach or without anything to slow digestion, it creates a rapid rise in blood sugar. This triggers a cascade of responses. Insulin surges, inflammation rises, and blood vessels, especially the ones in the brain, are placed under sudden stress. Inside these vessels, inflammation becomes a quiet architect of future problems. Over time, repeated sugar spikes wear down the inner lining of arteries. Microscopic tears form, and the body, in trying to heal, sends clotting factors to the site. If the clot grows too large, or if several clots form close together, it can partially or completely block the blood supply to the brain, causing what's known as an ischemic stroke. And the danger isn't always immediate or dramatic. It can build in silence, like water wearing away rock. Let me share with you the story of Jeanette Morris, an 80-year-old retired schoolteacher from Missouri. She lived a lifestyle many would envy. No soda, no processed snacks, always choosing fresh fruits and vegetables. Her favorite snack was a bowl of red grapes in the morning. She'd enjoy them with the newspaper or while chatting with her daughter on the phone. Sometimes she'd eat 2 cups without giving it a second thought. One quiet morning, she sat at her kitchen table writing a birthday card. Halfway through, her vision blurred. She paused, rubbed her eyes, but it didn't clear. Then her hand trembled, and she couldn't remember how to spell the word congratulations. Her daughter rushed her to the emergency room, fearing a stroke, and it was a transient ischemic attack, also called a mini-stroke, caused by a brief blockage of blood to the left side of her brain. What shocked her doctors wasn't just the event itself, but what her lab results showed. Her midday glucose levels spiked dramatically. Her A1C, the long-term marker of blood sugar, had entered the pre-diabetic range, but she had no idea. She never touched candy or soda, but her high fruit intake, specifically high-sugar fruits eaten alone, was silently pushing her into metabolic dysfunction. Even more concerning was the chronic, low-grade inflammation detected in her vascular system. Her arteries had been under stress for years. This isn't about demonizing fruit. It's about understanding the context of what we eat. As our bodies age, what once was harmless or even beneficial can take on new risks. Grapes digest rapidly. Their sugars are quickly absorbed into the bloodstream, especially when eaten alone, while dehydrated, or under emotional stress. When this happens, the body enters a hyperglycemic state. Blood thickens, vessels tighten, and clotting factors increase. You may not feel any of it. You might even feel energized for a moment. But beneath the surface, damage builds. That's why I always advise caution. Don't eat grapes on an empty stomach. Never eat them by the bowlful. Instead, pair them with something that slows digestion, some protein like a few almonds or a slice of cheese. Keep the portion small, and eat them during active hours of the day when your body has a better chance of metabolizing the sugars. And if you're already managing blood sugar or blood pressure with medication, be even more mindful, because what seems like a light, innocent treat can, over time, steal more than just energy. It can impact memory, balance, speech, and ultimately, your independence. And speaking of sweet and dangerous, there's another fruit that feels like sunshine in a bite. It's bright, tropical, often eaten after dinner. But its combination of acid, sugar, and enzymes can quietly create the perfect storm while you sleep. Let's talk about pineapple. There's something seductive about pineapple. Its golden flesh and juicy bite give the impression of vitality and health. Many enjoy it as a guilt-free dessert, believing it aids digestion thanks to its enzyme, bromelain. In small amounts, bromelain can indeed help break down proteins. But when consumed regularly in larger quantities, especially by those on certain medications, it can become unpredictable and even dangerous. Bromelain can interfere with the body's clotting process. It reduces platelet aggregation, which may sound beneficial in preventing clots, but it can also disrupt the delicate balance your body relies on to avoid excessive bleeding or erratic clot formation. For individuals with slower metabolic rates or vascular fragility, this effect can tip in the wrong direction. Add sugar to the mix, and you have another challenge. Just 1 cup of pineapple contains over 16 grams of sugar. While it's natural, it acts no differently in your bloodstream, especially when consumed at night, after dinner. When your metabolism begins to slow, that sugar lingers. Blood sugar remains elevated. Insulin stays active longer, and the system remains in a stress state instead of entering restful, restorative sleep. Worse still, the acid in pineapple can interfere with sleep quality and irritate the stomach lining, especially in those prone to acid reflux. The nighttime combination of lingering sugar, bromelain's clotting interference, and disrupted sleep creates an environment where inflammation rises, blood vessels remain constricted, and clot risk increases silently overnight. This doesn't mean pineapple should be banned. It means understanding how and when to eat it. A small portion during the day, paired with a source of fat or protein, may offer the benefits without the risks. But as a nightly dessert or as a standalone snack, it can carry consequences most never consider. Our bodies change with time. Foods that once nourished us may now require moderation, timing, and thoughtful pairing. Understanding these subtle shifts can help prevent the gradual buildup of inflammation, glucose spikes, and vascular stress that so often lead to stroke, not with drama, but in silence. Unlike berries or apples, pineapple has a high glycemic index. That means it causes a rapid surge of sugar in the bloodstream. And when eaten late in the day, that spike isn't efficiently used for energy. Instead, it lingers in the blood, circulating while the body is at rest, adding stress to blood vessels during sleep. But beyond the sugar, There's a more underestimated issue: acidity. Pineapple is among the most acidic fruits regularly consumed in the American diet. That acidity can irritate the lining of the esophagus and trigger something known as silent reflux. Unlike classic reflux, this doesn't always cause the burning sensation people associate with heartburn. In some cases, especially with age, it can occur without pain. Instead, it leads to subtle but dangerous effects, like microaspiration during sleep and pressure changes in the airway. These changes, over time, have been linked to reduced oxygen supply to the brain during rest, potentially increasing the risk of certain types of strokes, especially those that occur in the early morning hours when the body is in its most vulnerable state. I recall one particular case that made this all very real. A patient named Clara Hughes, 77, a retired choir director from North Carolina, came into my care. She was vibrant, mentally sharp, and had made a strong commitment to clean eating. She had given up most processed desserts and instead chose what she believed was a healthy habit: a few slices of fresh pineapple after dinner. For more than a year, it became her post-meal routine. Then one morning, she awoke feeling confused and sluggish. Her daughter noticed her speech was slurred, and she had trouble balancing as she walked. A CT scan later revealed that Clara had suffered a small stroke, specifically in the posterior circulation of her brain, the area responsible for balance and coordination. Blood tests showed elevated glucose levels, indicators of nighttime reflux inflammation, and some irregularities in her blood platelets. There wasn't a single cause behind what had happened. It was a combination of factors. Her evening pineapple ritual had caused nightly sugar surges, consistent esophageal irritation from acid, and interaction between bromelain, an enzyme in pineapple, and her blood's clotting behavior. All of this combined into a storm that nearly cost her independence. The very fruit she thought was helping her health was silently setting a dangerous stage in her body. And this isn't an isolated scenario. As the digestive system slows, the elasticity of blood vessels declines, and sleep patterns shift. What once seemed like harmless foods can turn into triggers. Consuming acidic and high-sugar fruits late in the day can cause blood vessels to constrict during rest, making the brain more vulnerable to reduced circulation. And under the right conditions, these circumstances can encourage silent clot formation that doesn't cause immediate symptoms, but lies in wait for just the right moment, like during sleep, to cause damage. The practical approach here is timing. If pineapple is a favorite, it's best to enjoy it earlier in the day, preferably after a balanced meal, and in moderation. It's also important to avoid on an empty stomach, since its acidity and sugar can hit harder without other nutrients to buffer the effects. And when combined with medications that affect blood thinning or clotting, the risks can be even more pronounced. Stability during sleep is essential for brain health, and that means reducing unnecessary variables, like sugar spikes, acidic irritation, and changes in blood thickness, especially at night. But if pineapple seems surprising, there's another fruit that deserves even more scrutiny: watermelon. It's often viewed as the ultimate hydrating fruit, a summertime favorite, especially during holidays and outdoor gatherings. Watermelon has that refreshing crunch, a high water content, and a clean sweetness that seems guilt-free. However, despite its reputation, it carries a risk that isn't about what it gives, but what it takes away. Watermelon has mild diuretic properties. It gently encourages the body to urinate more frequently. For someone in their 20s or 30s, that's a minor inconvenience. But for those with more delicate circulation, low to normal blood pressure, or on certain heart or kidney medications, the increased urination can lead to dehydration. And when dehydration happens overnight, it's one of the most quietly dangerous states for the brain. When the body becomes dehydrated, blood doesn't flow as easily. It thickens, becoming more viscous, more like syrup than water. That thickened blood has a harder time passing through already narrowed or stiffened arteries. Slower blood movement allows more time for clot formation, especially in areas where vessel walls may already be weakened. The brain, incredibly sensitive to even small changes in oxygen levels, suffers quickly when circulation is compromised. At night, the body naturally experiences lower blood pressure and slower circulation, making dehydration from something as innocent as watermelon even more hazardous. One example I'll never forget is a man named Howard Larkin. He was 82 and had spent most of his life delivering mail, fit, proud, and meticulous about his daily routine. He had transitioned to a cleaner diet, made walking a part of his mornings, and had cut out most processed foods. In the evenings, especially during the warmer months, he enjoyed a generous helping of watermelon, 2 or 3 thick slices, after dinner. It became a small joy, and he believed it was helping him stay hydrated. But he was also on a diuretic for mild heart issues, a medication that already encouraged the body to release fluid. The watermelon added to that effect. Unbeknownst to him, the combination was leading to subtle but chronic dehydration, especially overnight. It wasn't dramatic. There were no warning signs. But one morning, he fainted while getting out of bed. After being brought to hospital, scans revealed that he had experienced a transient ischemic attack, a mini-stroke, likely brought on by a drop in blood pressure and a temporary reduction in blood flow to his brain. The doctors connected the dots. Nighttime fluid loss, thickened blood, and a fragile circulation system created the perfect storm. Foods that seem harmless or even healthy can sometimes carry risks depending on timing, combinations with medications, and the body's shifting needs. In the case of watermelon, it's not about avoiding it altogether. It's about being mindful how it interacts with the body's natural rhythms and any medications in use. Eating it earlier in the day, ensuring hydration throughout the afternoon, and monitoring for signs of fluid imbalance can all reduce potential risk. When the body is resting, it doesn't need to work harder to compensate for dietary decisions made hours earlier. What it needs is balance, stable sugar, steady hydration, and calm circulation. Even fruits in the right context can tip that balance without warning. Between the medication and the natural water-pulling effect of the watermelon, Howard's body was shedding too much fluid overnight. One morning, Howard woke up with severe vertigo. When he tried to stand, he collapsed. At the hospital, his blood pressure was dangerously low, and his blood work showed signs of concentrated hemoglobin, a clear indication that his blood had thickened due to dehydration. Scans revealed a small ischemic stroke, likely caused by a clot forming in his already narrowed arteries while he slept. His watermelons, it turns out, were doing the opposite of what he believed, drying him out instead of hydrating him. What's worse is that the stroke didn't just pass through his system quietly. It affected his sense of balance and coordination. Though he survived, he now walks with cane and needs help with daily tasks. Just a week earlier, he was mowing his lawn with ease. This isn't about blaming a single fruit. This is about understanding how even foods that seem inherently healthy can create dangerous imbalances in the body when combined with medication, age-related physiological changes, and poor timing. Watermelon eaten late in the day, especially after medications that already reduce fluid volume, can create a risky internal environment. Thickened blood, lower than normal blood pressure, and sluggish circulation. Those 3 conditions together create the perfect storm for a clot to quietly form and strike in the middle of the night. If you enjoy watermelon, there's no reason to stop entirely, but it's crucial to be mindful. Eating it earlier in the day, when your body is still active and circulating fluids more efficiently, is a safer option. Pairing it with a source of electrolytes, like a pinch of salt or a bit of coconut water, can help restore some of the minerals lost and maintain fluid balance. And if you're on diuretics or blood pressure medications, it's essential to check whether watermelon should be a regular part of your routine. More importantly, don't ignore the early signs. Dizziness in the morning, a dry mouth when you wake up, or waking up in a fog. These are not typical symptoms to brush off. These are subtle warnings. Your body's way of saying something isn't right. Even a fruit that's over 90% water can be a hidden drain on hydration if it pulls out more than it puts in. And the danger is that it happens quietly. You don't feel it until you do. Now, if that surprised you, wait until we talk about another fruit. One that's practically been marketed as the icon of a healthy breakfast. The bright, refreshing, feel-good fruit that sits in a bowl on kitchen counters across the country. The classic American orange. It sounds harmless. After all, it's packed with vitamin C, right? But inside that vibrant skin lies a chemical that can subtly but powerfully interfere with your medications, particularly those for the heart and brain. It's not the sugar, although that alone is enough to spike blood sugar in sensitive individuals. The real concern is a compound found in many citrus fruits, including oranges and grapefruits, called furanocoumarin. Most people have never heard of this compound, but it plays a significant role in how the body metabolizes medications. Furanocoumarins interfere with enzymes in the liver, particularly one called CYP3A4. This enzyme is responsible for breaking down many commonly prescribed drugs, statins, calcium channel blockers, and some blood thinners among them. When this enzyme is blocked, the medication doesn't get processed at its normal pace. Instead, it builds up in the bloodstream, potentially leading to toxicity. Or in other cases, the opposite may occur. The medication gets flushed from the body too quickly and doesn't have time to do its job. In both scenarios, the outcome can be dangerous. Blood becomes unpredictable, sometimes too thin, sometimes too thick. Arteries constrict irregularly. Circulation stutters, and the body is left vulnerable to sudden cardiovascular events like strokes. As a brain doctor, I've seen many cases where people unknowingly created this risk themselves by mixing their morning fruit with their morning pills. One such case was Elmer Bryant, 79, a retired bus driver from Georgia. A warm-hearted man with a dependable routine, Elmer had been prescribed atorvastatin for cholesterol and amlodipine for blood pressure. He also believed strongly in natural living. Each morning, like clockwork, he made himself a tall glass of fresh-squeezed orange juice. He called it his sunshine in a glass. He believed it was helping him stay strong and energized. But what Elmer didn't realize was that the furanocoumarin in the juice was interfering with his liver's ability to process his medications. His blood pressure medication was building up, making his blood pressure drop more than intended. At the same time, the statin was accumulating in his system, particularly in his muscles and bloodstream. This led to inflammation and vascular strain. After a few days of feeling off balance and mildly dizzy, Elmer collapsed one morning while rising from his recliner. He was taken to the emergency room with slurred speech and mental fog. A CT scan revealed he had experienced a small ischemic stroke. Blood tests showed elevated levels of both medications. Not because he'd taken too much, but because his liver hadn't been able to break them down properly. His wife sat next to him as I explained what had happened. Elmer shook his head and said, "I thought orange juice was good for me." And it had been, once. But the body changes. What supports us at 40 may not serve us the same way at 70 or beyond, especially once medications enter the equation. Grapefruit is the most well-known citrus to cause this reaction, but Seville oranges and even common navel oranges can do the same thing when consumed regularly. The more consistent the exposure to these compounds, the more likely it is that a dangerous level of drug interaction could occur. The lesson here isn't to fear food, but to understand it better. Food is powerful, so are medications. And when the two interact, the effects can be far more complex than they appear on the surface. Many fruits offer incredible benefits, but even natural foods can come with warnings that the body's internal chemistry is already being influenced by medication. As for Elmer, he's recovering, slowly, but his daily routine has changed. No more fresh-squeezed orange juice first thing in the morning. His medications are working more predictably now, but it was a hard way to learn a simple truth. Sometimes the danger doesn't come from processed junk or fast food. It comes from the most innocent-looking thing in your kitchen. As the body ages, changes in the liver's function can have ripple effects on how we respond to what we eat and the medications we take. The liver doesn't metabolize substances as efficiently as it once did. Its enzymatic activity slows, detoxification becomes sluggish, and this significantly raises the risk of food-drug interactions. One of the more surprising culprits in this equation? Oranges. While often associated with vitamin C and immune support, oranges and citrus fruits in general can become problematic, especially when taken alongside certain medications. Citrus, particularly grapefruit and Seville oranges, can interfere with a liver enzyme known as CYP3A4. This enzyme helps break down many common prescription drugs. When it's blocked, the concentration of medication in the bloodstream can rise to dangerous levels, turning a therapeutic dose into a toxic one. While grapefruits are well known for this interaction, sweet oranges can also cause issues, especially when consumed in large amounts or in juice form. Drinking a full glass of orange juice every morning, once a symbol of healthy living, could quietly be altering how your medications are absorbed and processed. For those managing blood pressure, cholesterol, or mood disorders, even a single orange, when timed poorly with medication, can shift drug levels unpredictably. That's why moderation and timing matter. Instead of drinking full glasses of juice, a better choice might be to squeeze a small splash of orange into water or opt for lower-risk citrus like clementines in modest quantities. But even then, it's wise to ask a medical provider if citrus could be affecting the way your medications work. Because what's in your fruit bowl can have just as much impact on your health as what's in your pill organizer. A daily routine that seems healthy, when repeated over time, can quietly set off a chain reaction in the body, one that leads not to wellness, but to a gradual breakdown in systems that were once resilient. One seemingly harmless habit can push the body toward a silent danger, especially when combined with age-related shifts in metabolism and vascular flexibility. And while citrus fruits raise concern for how they interact with medications, another fruit, widely viewed as wholesome and often praised for gut health, can affect the body in an entirely different way. Apples, those shiny symbols of natural goodness, carry their own risks if consumed without thought, especially by those managing blood sugar, vascular function, or neurological changes. Apples are everywhere, handed out in hospitals, tucked into school lunches, and bought in bulk by health-conscious shoppers. They're familiar, comforting, and often chosen as a better alternative to processed snacks. But not all apples are equal in their nutritional impact. Many modern apple varieties like Honeycrisp, Fuji, and Gal are bred to be exceptionally sweet. Their high natural sugar content, coupled with a high glycemic load, means they deliver a rapid surge of glucose into the bloodstream. That rapid surge may feel like a short burst of energy, but the effects go deeper and last longer. When blood sugar spikes quickly, the body responds with a wave of insulin to bring those levels down. The spike in crash pattern stresses the vascular system. The blood becomes thicker, more acidic, and more inflammatory. Insulin surges cause blood vessels to constrict, and over time, that repeated strain begins to damage the endothelium, the thin, protective lining inside arteries. This damage isn't always obvious at first. It starts as micro tears in the vessel walls. The body, in an attempt to repair, forms tiny clots. In younger people with flexible arteries and strong recovery mechanisms, these processes might go unnoticed. But for someone whose arteries are already more rigid or whose glucose control is impaired, these tiny clots can build. Over time, they can accumulate and travel, increasing the risk of stroke or other vascular events. Consider a real-world case. A woman named Louise Hammond, 81, who had maintained a routine of daily walks, medication adherence, and what she believed was a healthy diet. Every afternoon, her snack of choice was a large Honeycrisp apple. She chose it intentionally, eschewing cookies, candy, or chips. But what Louise didn't know was that she had developed insulin resistance, a condition that made her more vulnerable to glucose spikes. Those apples, despite being natural, were acting more like sugar bombs. Over time, she began experiencing slight visual disturbances in the evening and occasional headaches when standing. Then, one night, while cooking, she suddenly couldn't speak clearly. She was rushed to the hospital, where doctors confirmed a minor stroke. Her blood work showed unstable glucose levels and signs of vascular inflammation. Her medications were working, but the daily sugar surges from her apple habit had been quietly contributing to endothelial damage. A clot had formed, likely during one of those post-snack insulin surges. Louise recovered, but her outlook on food changed. Apples weren't a villain, but they weren't entirely innocent either. Now she approaches them differently, with awareness. She opts for Granny Smith apples, which are lower in sugar and higher in polyphenol, compounds that help protect brain and vascular health. She pairs them with almond butter or a slice of cheese to slow digestion and reduce the blood sugar spike. She no longer eats apples on an empty stomach, especially not in the evening when glucose regulation is naturally weaker. What matters is not just the food itself, but how it's eaten, when it's eaten, and what it's eaten with. An apple in isolation, especially a sweet one, can be a hidden disruptor. Blood sugar fluctuations trigger a cascade of changes in blood chemistry and vessel behavior, making clots more likely to form and more likely to cause harm. And apples aren't the only fruits with hidden risks. Next comes a fruit often considered a superfood, praised for its deep color, antioxidants, and heart-supporting properties. It's common in health smoothies, fruit bowls, and summer desserts. But beneath the vibrant red skin of cherries lies a compound that can alter blood viscosity in concerning ways. When consumed in excess, this compound may interact with medications and thin the blood too much, potentially increasing the risk of bleeding, even inside the brain. Many people reach for cherries for their flavor and anti-inflammatory benefits. But few are aware that cherries are naturally high in salicylates, compounds related to aspirin. In small amounts, these can reduce inflammation and support heart health. But for people already taking blood-thinning medications like aspirin, clopidogrel, or warfarin, cherries can double down on that effect. The blood becomes too thin, clotting is delayed, and the risk of bleeding increases, especially in delicate vessels like those in the brain. Doctors often recommend cherries for inflammation, arthritis, and even heart support. You'll spot them in wellness magazines, organic grocery shelves, and tucked into everything from smoothies to salads. Their sweet flavor and reputation for health benefits have earned them a trusted spot in many diets. But what's rarely discussed is the hidden risk they carry, especially for older individuals who take medications that affect blood clotting. The issue lies in a natural compound found in cherries known as salicylates. These substances act similarly to aspirin by thinning the blood. In small amounts, this can offer some benefit. But for people who are already on blood-thinning medications like warfarin, clopidogrel, or even low-dose aspirin, adding salicylates from food sources can quietly tip the balance in a dangerous direction. The body's ability to clot becomes compromised. Blood vessels, especially those that have aged or weakened over time, may begin to leak. In the worst cases, a hemorrhagic stroke can occur, bleeding inside the brain. Few people associate such outcomes with fruit. It sounds unlikely, but these risks are real. One such case involved Daniel Rhodes, age 84, a retired train conductor from Illinois, after a mild heart attack years prior. He was prescribed a daily aspirin, along with a statin and medication to manage his blood pressure. Daniel had a nightly ritual. After dinner, he'd enjoy a small bowl of cherries. He called it his nature's dessert. He believed in the anti-inflammatory properties of cherries and wanted to keep his joints strong to stay active with his great-grandchildren. At first, everything seemed fine, but over several weeks, subtle symptoms crept in: headaches, dizziness, some nausea. Then one morning, Daniel woke confused and vomiting. His wife rushed him to the emergency department. A CT scan delivered alarming news: a brain bleed, not from trauma, not from high blood pressure, but from blood that had become too thin to clot, causing a fragile blood vessel to rupture. His doctors reviewed his medications. No errors. Everything was prescribed at the proper dose. But when they examined his diet, the connection became clear. The cumulative effect of salicylates from cherries, combined with his daily aspirin, had slowly created the perfect internal storm. This is exactly what makes the danger so subtle. It develops quietly over time. Most feel fine until the moment they're not. And once a brain bleed begins, it's difficult to stop. Recovery from such events is uncertain. Some people lose speech, others mobility. Many never return to full independence. What's crucial to understand is that natural foods, even healthy ones, can interact powerfully with medications. The way the body metabolizes these substances at age 70 or 80 is vastly different from age 40. A fruit that's beneficial to a young, healthy individual may push someone with a delicate health balance into crisis. That doesn't mean cherries must be avoided altogether, but moderation matters. Occasional servings may be harmless. However, concentrated forms, juices, dried fruits, or daily large portions pose far greater risks. When combined with clotting medications, even something as simple as a bowl of cherries can become a catalyst for harm. Now, let's turn to another fruit, often praised for its antioxidant content and widely served at brunches and in smoothies: strawberries. Vibrant, heart-shaped, and sweet with slight tang. They're seen as a symbol of clean eating, often featured in health meal trays and wellness recipes. But beneath the surface, strawberries may be hiding threats that go unnoticed. Strawberries are among the most heavily sprayed fruits in the agricultural industry. Every year, they rank near the top of the Environmental Working Group's Dirty Dozen, a list identifying produce with the highest levels of pesticide residue, even after thorough washing. And as the body's ability to detoxify slows with age, these residues don't always leave the system efficiently. Instead, they accumulate in tissues, including the brain. Pesticides used on conventionally grown strawberries are often neurotoxic. That means they don't just irritate the body. They actually damage brain cells. They increase oxidative stress, especially in neurons already vulnerable due to aging. Over time, this weakens the delicate blood vessels in the brain's white matter, making them more susceptible to mini strokes, memory lapses, and cognitive decline. And there's another layer to the risk. Strawberries contain purines, compounds that metabolize into uric acid. For people with gout, kidney issues, or vascular inflammation, elevated uric acid can lead to flares of inflammation. This, in turn, narrows blood vessels, raises blood pressure, and increases the likelihood of clot formation. Elaine Carter, 80, from Michigan, had always loved strawberries. She picked them fresh every June, froze them for winter, and enjoyed them after dinner. She believed in their health benefits. Her medical history included mild hypertension and joint discomfort, for which she took a water pill. But her health began to shift subtly. Morning dizziness, persistent joint swelling. Then one morning, she woke up with a numb hand and slurred speech. At the hospital, tests showed a minor ischemic stroke. Her uric acid was elevated. There were signs of oxidative stress and systemic inflammation. After reviewing her habits, it became clear that the years of pesticide exposure and purine buildup from daily strawberries played a role in her stroke. What she thought was helping her had, over time, become a hidden source of damage. So if strawberries are part of your diet, choose only organic varieties. Wash them carefully. Limit how often you eat them. Don't rely on them as your main source of antioxidants. And be cautious with frozen strawberries and prepackaged smoothies. They often originate from large-scale overseas farms with less pesticide regulation. Now, consider a different fruit, one associated with tropical indulgence and heart support. Mango. Its golden flesh is sweet, soft, and fragrant, often found in fruit salads, smoothie blends, or dried into chewy snack strips. It's marketed as a smart alternative to desserts. But for many people, mango might be hiding more risk than reward. Mango is incredibly high in natural sugar. 1 cup holds nearly 45 grams, more than a standard donut. This sugar is absorbed rapidly, triggering sharp blood sugar spikes followed by insulin surges. For people with insulin resistance or unstable blood pressure, this fluctuation puts extra pressure on blood vessels, especially those supplying the brain. But mango holds yet another risk. It contains natural compounds like mangiferin, which may interfere with liver enzymes, especially the cytochrome P450 system. This system is responsible for breaking down many medications. When it slows, drugs can linger in the body longer than intended. This can lead to dangerously high levels, even if you're taking the correct dose. After a few weeks, William started noticing an odd pattern. He felt dizzy in the mornings, not just the usual grogginess, but lightheadedness that left him uneasy. Then one morning, things took a serious turn. As he tried to get out of bed, he collapsed. His wife rushed to his side and found him pale, confused, and with a noticeable droop on the left side of his face. At the hospital, scans confirmed what no one wanted to hear, a minor ischemic stroke. The cause wasn't immediately obvious. William hadn't missed his medication, and his lifestyle seemed healthy enough. But lab tests revealed his blood pressure had dropped dangerously low overnight, and his medication levels were unusually high, even though he'd been taking the correct doses. After a thorough review, the source of the problem emerged. It wasn't some obscure illness. It wasn't a missed dose. It was something that seemed completely harmless. Dried mango. William had been eating it daily, believing it was a healthy snack. But the concentrated sugars and compounds in the mango had overwhelmed his liver, interfering with how his medications were processed. On top of that, the sugar spikes from the mango were making things worse. disrupting his blood sugar and circulation and creating the perfect storm for clot formation. The stroke affected his coordination and short-term memory. He survived, but not without a cost. His life changed forever because of something so ordinary, so seemingly innocent. This is why I urge caution. Certain fruits, while natural and sweet, can pose unexpected risks. Mango, especially in its dried form, can be more harmful than people realize. It's not just the sugar content that's concerning. It's the way sugar interacts with a body that's changing. Metabolism slows down over time. Liver function becomes less efficient. And many people rely on a mix of prescription medications that can be thrown off balance by something as simple as a daily snack. Even a few slices of dried mango can be enough to cause trouble, especially when eaten at night or on an empty stomach. If you truly enjoy mango, moderation is key. Keep your portion small, just a few bites. Eat it during the day when your body is more active and better able to handle the sugar. Always pair it with a source of protein or fat, like a small handful of nuts or a slice of cheese. This helps blunt the sugar spike and prevents rapid swings in blood pressure or insulin. And if you're on any medications, particularly those for heart issues, cholesterol, or blood pressure, talk to your doctor. Mango may no longer be a safe option, depending on your unique needs and medical profile. It's a simple conversation that could protect you from a potentially life-altering event. As we get older, the margin for error shrinks. The foods we once ate without consequence can now have profound effects. What was harmless at 30 or 40 may no longer be safe. Our kidneys process more slowly, our liver clears substances less efficiently, and our blood vessels lose their flexibility. The brain, which is incredibly sensitive to changes in blood pressure and sugar, becomes especially vulnerable. This means that every bite we take matters more now than ever before. Many people build habits they believe are healthy, like grabbing a banana with their morning pills, snacking on grapes in the afternoon, or drinking a glass of orange juice first thing in the morning. These routines feel wholesome. They're familiar, comforting, and they've probably been part of life for decades. But the truth is, under the surface, these choices can trigger a silent chain reaction, increase inflammation, stiffen arteries, blood that's either too thin or too thick, and, most dangerously, clots that can block oxygen to the brain. A single clot, no larger than a grain of rice, in the wrong place at the wrong time, can steal your ability to speak, walk, or remember your loved ones. I've seen it happen. It's tragic, and often it was preventable. But there's good news, too. Not all fruits are problematic. In fact, some, when eaten wisely, can become allies in protecting your brain and heart. Fruits like berries, blueberries, raspberries, blackberries are low in sugar and packed with antioxidants and polyphenol that help reduce inflammation and protect blood vessels. They support memory and circulation without interfering with medication or spiking blood sugar. Green apples, especially varieties like Granny Smith, are another great choice. Lower in sugar than red apples and rich in flavonoids, they can be enjoyed with a spoonful of nut butter or a slice of cheese for balanced energy. Avocados, though often forgotten as a fruit, are incredibly valuable. They're full of healthy fats, help regulate blood pressure, and support nerve health, all without the sugar content that causes problems. What matters just as much as what you eat is when and how you eat it. Always eat fruit earlier in the day, and never on an empty stomach. Pair it with protein or healthy fat to avoid rapid sugar absorption. And perhaps most importantly, avoid fruit right before bed. That's when blood circulation slows, and a sugar or acid spike at that time can quietly do damage that won't be felt until it's too late. This isn't about living in fear. It's about living with respect for your body, your experience, and the changes that come with time. You're not fragile, but you are different than you were. And understanding that difference can empower you to make choices that protect your mind, your movement, and your independence. You've made it through challenges. You've accumulated wisdom. Don't let something as simple as a piece of fruit, something you always believed was safe, undo the work you've done to stay strong and sharp. Every food choice is an opportunity to nourish not just your body, but your future. So, take a moment and think about what's in your kitchen. Read the labels. Consider the timing. Ask your doctor about your favorite snacks. These small steps can be the difference between stability and a silent threat. You're not just eating to stay alive anymore. You're eating to stay you, to keep your memory, your balance, your clarity. And you can do it. With knowledge, mindfulness, and care, you can continue enjoying food, joy, and life on your terms. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What's one thing you've learned today that surprised you or made you think differently? Drop it in the comments. Below, your thoughts really matter. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching.